you're used to performing in front of people, but you don't talk.
Sometimes I talk.
You do?
It depends. If there's a soiree or something that's a smaller audience, then oftentimes there's a much better audience link. If I'm able to talk about the music, and especially in European type of audiences, they're more used to that because it's a less formalized approach.
Yeah, like the way that Franz Liszt used to do it, and
exactly,
like those little settings, those chamber settings or whatever. Really? That's great.
It's closer to that type of culture than what we have here. Here, I understand because I don't actually. This is not one of my career spaces in the U.S. in terms of performing. I understand it's much more formalized, and that they've reached a level where there's no audience participation at all.
You've been in Europe for 20 years?
No, that's not true. I've been there for the last 16 years, and it's been mainly London-based, but then in the last 2 years living in based in Switzerland, but more commuting back and forth.
But you're an American, you obviously.
I'm an American. I'm actually from San Francisco originally, so California is a native state, but this is outer space down here.
Well, it's great, though. You'll get used to it. What took you from the United States? I mean, you're obviously a young guy, and actually beneath the age that some virtuosos even reach their peak. You're below that, I would say.
Yeah.
So,
well,
what took you there, and then what brought you back?
I was originally a composer. I was studying in San Francisco, or the San Francisco Conservatory of Music, and I was studying there as a composer with John Adams. Maybe you know what that is?
Sure do.
And he went on with the Nixon in China and became super well known, but he wasn't when I was studying with him. And then I switched to playing the piano, and I went to study in Europe. So the idea was I wanted to become a pianist, which you can only do when you're early in life, and really concentrate on that. And I got sucked into doing more and more concerts, and then never got back to the composing.
Okay.
So that's what happened. And then just over the last year did I come back to composing. And general inspiration and acceptance of new ideas brought me to Malibu.
I understand that the last concert you did before you came here, see, I do have little spies up there, that you were in Switzerland, and you got a wonderful review. Somebody read me the review.
Right.
And you're wondering who that is.
So we know who that is.
So we know who that is. Hi, Elizabeth. So she read me the review, and it was wonderful. And in the review, you got a wonderful review, and I'm glad that you like the romantic period. That's one of my favorites. And that is either one of your 5 encores, I think they said you got, or during the regular performance, you played Chopin's Scherzo No. 2.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been an encore.
No, that's serious. Because that's about 10 minutes, right?
Yeah. My first impression of you giving this is this thing, well, Richter playing Chopin, Then you think, well, what's he playing? I mean, if it was the etudes, I'd want to listen to it. If it's the nocturnes, I'd be a little more...
You should hear him play those. When you play Mendelssohn or Schubert or Chopin, that's one side of you. And now here you're composing. Which is more creative?
Wow, what a big, this is the biggest question there is, because I think the answer is,
big bucks.
You cannot answer that question saying one is or the others, because, you know, you'd think that creating music is more creative than interpreting. That's basically what you're talking about.
Right.
It's not true. Because just like you say, one is acting, or is an actor who's interpreting what's been written, and that oftentimes is a talent that the composer has no perception of. I mean, people assume that because Beethoven wrote this fantastic music that he could perform it and interpret it, and it's not necessarily the case.
That's right. Although in his case, he was a great piano player.
He was a great piano player.
And a great violinist, by the way.
Yeah, but I mean, by whose standards? And this is by accounts of history.
That's true.
I'm not trying to say...
No, I understand.
Right. I mean, who says that maybe Richter is a performer that Beethoven would truly applaud, or maybe Beethoven wouldn't understand it. So we can't judge it by Beethoven's standards.
That's right.
It's two different things.
Concept. So it's just as creative to be the interpreter, then, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. Now, what's really interesting from my point of view is I'm interpreting works that I've created. I've more or less rejected the avant-garde movement as in terms of immediate access to audience. By performing my own pieces, I feel like, well, it seems very clear to me that the feedback is that I am reaching those people, and I'm reaching them in much greater numbers than I was when I was performing just the classics. Right. So even though the only way to get my pieces accepted in there is to perform them with the classics, the audience is appreciating the music that I've written. So I feel great about it.
That's really good. The only other classical composer that I can think of that performed his own music, and actually once he became a performer, I think he stopped composing, was Rachmaninoff. When he came to the United States, he really never composed again, after like 1915 or 20 or whatever. And then he just played his music for a while. He wanted to make it as a touring piano player.
Yeah, he's a great influence on me, by the way, Rachmaninoff. And
then I have to let you hear Richter playing number 2 and all the 18s. They're great.
Oh, I know number 2.
Yeah.
There's no problem about that.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean number 2 here?
By him.
Oh, this?
No, the Rachmaninoff
pieces.
pieces.
Rock second, you know. That's one of my big pieces.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you'll have to play it for me sometime.
Rachmaninoff second, Rachmaninoff third. Those are all my pieces.
That is the most sensuous. I think that's just as good as it gets.
Americans love that.
Yeah.
But you know, it's true what you said. But he's actually doing something that's opposite me. He's starting out composing, and he's going to
went the other way.
I'm doing the opposite. Actually, my route would be, if you were to compare, which is not the right thing to do, is more like Liszt.
Franz. Oh,
because you
that's
see,
the other guy that did right.
He gave up, age 36, no more public life. Then he became a hermit. He wore a Cossack and became took the high orders to the Catholic Church, and all these kind of things were happening after he gave up his performing life.
But I love the music. I heard that little Rachmaninoff in there and a little Liszt and a little Gershwin. We didn't talk about Gershwin. Yeah. There's another guy who wrote and played. Are you a Gershwin fan?
It's interesting that it's impossible, I think, if you were a composer in America, to get away from the fact that you've got this culture that you share with George Gershwin. Because so it's inevitable that if you have any type of a leaning towards classical music or any kind of music, you're gonna have some kind of a jazz influence. It seems to me obvious that the widest audience for music is through films. I mean, you have a huge audience for more or less serious music. It's real music, and also my music. It became more and more apparent was visual, so I had more and more openings over here in that area.
I used to represent a painter when I was in the art business who would listen to music and then paint what he saw. He would put himself in a meditative state while he was listening to the music, and let's say he was listening to Rachmaninoff or whatever, and then he would see these things and then paint them.
That's
so
brilliant.
because music has color and shades and textures and shapes. On the other hand, you can go the other way, which is you can look at pictures and see what it conjures up in terms of sounds. So that's really what you're doing, isn't it?
It is. It's interesting that you say that, because a lot of people listen to my music and go, oh, I can see that you were inspired by such, but in fact, that's not the case. Afterwards, I'll title the piece Inspired by Such.
Well, that's pretty neat.
These are areas I don't know very much about.
But you're doing that.
I've got sight and sound here.
Yeah, but when you see, like the video we just saw,
yeah.
They showed you that video and then you put the music to it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, isn't that the same thing? When you looked at it, what process do you go through, or do you not know, that all of a sudden you just start hearing melodies in your head?
I don't know is the answer. I don't know. I wish I could. I leave that to a higher order.
I think it takes a lot of courage for a guy like you, Carter, to kind of, even though you're keeping that career, to come here to pursue a new career. If you were to give some advice to some musicians out there, how do you find the courage inside of you, or whatever it is inside of you, to be willing to go for it?
Yeah, just don't listen to anybody else. Just do what's right for you.